Hello. So, I just wanted to say that I'm very interested in learning about conflict mediation. This is a, what is the opposite of skill that I have, where it is necessary to work with people and be cool. So, this is mostly a personal exercise in reading, because I have a hard time focusing. So I'm just gonna read it out loud, and it's for you, but it's also for me. Okay. Okay. The empowerment of alternative dispute resolution. There is a continuum of the degree of personal empowerment in the various methods that people use to solve their disputes. Personal power is in direct proportion to the personal involvement of the parties involved. The choices range from direct negotiation to litigation. To compare the amount of control a person has, note the line chart below. Direct negotiation gives the participants the most control. Litigation provides the participants with the least personal control. We must also note that litigation theoretically provides the participants with the greatest number of legal safeguards, and negotiation provides the least amount of legal protections. Negotiation. Definition. A discussion between two or more disputants aimed at reaching an agreement. When is it used? Everyday disagreements. Conflict between two people who currently have a good relationship. Advantages. The parties talk directly to each other. They decide what time is convenient, where to speak, and what they will talk about. Disadvantages. There are no protections, and there is no facilitative outsider to help the parties communicate. Mediation. Definition. A process where an outside person facilitates a conversation between the parties with the goal of increasing understanding and/or reaching a resolution. When is it used? Conflicts between two or more individuals that do not involve ongoing violence, a strong imbalance of power, or substance abuse. Advantages. The parties speak for themselves and decide on their own resolution, with the added benefit of an outside facilitator to protect the interests of both parties and encourage listening. Disadvantages. Does not move quickly enough to handle urgent conflicts. Does not provide any legal protections. Conciliation. Definition. A process of one-on-one communications between each disputant and an outside person, caucuses, who brokers a non-binding resolution. When is it used? Conflicts between parties who do not want to put in the labor associated with mediation but do not want to be forced to follow a binding resolution. Advantages. Greater protection of the interests of each party. Disadvantages. Parties lose control over how their story is presented. Does not provide any legal protections. Arbitration. Definition. A process in which a third party reviews the evidence in the case and imposes a decision that is legally binding on both sides and enforceable in the courts. When is it used? Often used for the resolution of commercial, consumer, and employment matters. Advantages. Fast legal protections for all parties. Disadvantages. Parties have no control over the outcome. The decision is made by a single person rather than a jury. Litigation. Definition. Litigation is a term used to describe formal proceedings initiated between two opposing parties to enforce or defend a legal right. In most cases, this happens the moment a party hires an attorney to represent their interests. When is it used? Litigation is perceived to offer satisfactions that other forms of conflict resolution usually cannot match. These are vindication, empowerment, Public hearing, legitimacy, justice. Advantages: highest amounts of legal protections. Disadvantages: expensive, time-consuming, no disputant control over outcome, increases adversary nature of conflict. So, roles and skills of a mediator. Keeper of the process. Ensuring participants have entered the process voluntarily. Communicating and guiding the disputants through the process. Maintain respect. Serve the needs of both parties. Disclosing potential conflict of interest and not having a vested stake in the outcome. Developing and maintaining process ground rules and agreements. Separating their own personal values from dispute and using non-judgmental language. Maintaining confidentiality. Identify and frame issues. Actively listening. Having sensitivity to strongly felt values of the participating parties, including gender, ethnic, and cultural differences. Dealing with factual material and the emotional context of the dispute. Asking clarifying questions and summarizing parties' interests and needs. Facilitate communication and negotiation. Identifying areas of common agreement. Helping parties prioritize their issues. Keeping parties focused on the issues at hand. Assist in problem solving and draft lasting agreements. Identifying principles and criteria for decision making. Developing creative options. Making informed choices. Testing the durability of potential agreements. Mediation styles. Facilitative mediation. The mediator assists the parties in reaching a mutually agreeable resolution. Asks questions. Validates and normalizes parties' points of view. Searches for interests underneath the positions taken by parties. Assists the parties in finding and analyzing options for the resolution. Structures the mediation. The mediator does not make recommendations to the parties. Give their own advice or opinion as to the outcome of the case. Predict what a court would do in the case. The mediator is in charge of the process while the parties are in charge of the outcome. Side note, fun fact, I once had a mediation thing because I went to small claims court recently, and it was very questionable how competent our mediator was, because he did make recommendations and give his own advice and predict what the court would do. So not all mediators are perfect, and they could all learn a lesson from this book I'm reading from. Anyways, having good role models for mediators is very helpful in deciding that you like mediation. Okay. Evaluative mediation. The mediator assists the parties in reaching resolution by pointing out the weaknesses of their cases, predicts what a judge or jury would be likely to. So there are different styles of mediation I'm learning, actually. So you can ignore that side note. Okay, evaluative mediation. The mediator assists the parties in reaching resolution by pointing out the weaknesses of their cases, predicting what a judge or jury would do, making a formal or informal recommendation to the parties as to the outcome of the issues, evaluates based on legal concepts of fairness, meets most often in separate meetings with the parties and their attorneys, practicing shuttle diplomacy. That would be pretty cool, shuttle diplomacy. Okay. Evaluates the costs versus the benefits of pursuing a legal resolution rather than settling in mediation. Structures the process and directly influences the outcome of mediation. There is an assumption in evaluative mediation that the mediator has substantive expertise or legal expertise in the substantive area of the dispute. Because of the connection between evaluative mediation and the courts, and because of their comfort level with settlement conferences, most evaluative mediators are attorneys. Transformative mediation. Transformative mediation is the newest concept of the three, named by Folger and Bush in their book The Promise of Mediation in 1994. Transformative mediation is based on the values of empowerment of each of the parties as much as possible and recognition by each of the parties of the other party's needs, interests, values, and points of view. The potential for transformative mediation is that any or all parties or their relationships may be transformed during the mediation. Transformative mediators meet with parties together since only they can give each other recognition. In transformative mediation, the parties structure both the process and the outcome of the mediation, and the mediator follows their lead. In some ways, the values of transformative mediation mirror those of early facilitative mediation in the interest in empowering parties in transformation. Early facilitative mediators fully expected to want to continue that process by allowing and supporting the parties in mediation to determine the direction of their own process. Pros and cons. Supporters say that facilitative and transformative mediation empowers parties and help parties take responsibility for their own disputes and the resolution of the disputes. Detractors say that facilitative and transformative mediation takes too long and too often ends without agreement. They worry that outcomes can be contrary to standards or fairness, and mediators in these approaches cannot protect the weaker party. Supporters of transformative mediation say that facilitative and evaluative mediators put too much pressure on clients to reach a solution. They believe that clients should decide whether they really want a resolution, not the mediator. Supporters of evaluative mediation say that clients want an answer if they can't reach an agreement, and they want to know that their answer is fair. They point to ever-increasing numbers of clients for evaluative mediation to show that market supports this type of mediation more than others. Detractors of evaluative mediation say that its popularity is due to the myopia of attorneys who choose evaluative mediation because they are familiar with the process. They believe the clients would not choose evaluative mediation if given enough information to make a choice. They also worry that the evaluative mediator may not be correct in their evaluation of the case. Communication skills. Watch your thoughts, for they become words. Watch your words, for they become actions. Watch your actions, for they become your destiny. Effective communication. Authentic communication is the core of dispute resolution. Without it, there can be no successful outcome. Authentic understanding requires more than a superficial or intellectual ability to repeat another point of view. It requires empathy, the ability to appreciate another person's perspective, feelings, values, and train of thought as if you were looking through their own eyes. Effective communication is active, result-driven, focused on increasing understanding, aware of the feelings behind words, balanced, respectful give and take. Nonverbal communication. The listener, without being consciously aware of it, picks up the meaning in the following ways: 55% body language, 35% tone, 7% content, words. Forms of nonverbal communications can consist of facial expressions: smiling, frowning, laughing, crying, sighing. Presentation: hair, clothing, face, body. Gestures: sweaty palms, posture, stiff hand movements. Voice: soft, loud, fast, slow, smooth, jerky. Yum. Environment: your home, your room, your desk, kitchen, car. Developing effective listening skills. Effective listening involves the entire person: body, mind, emotions, values, and intuition. Because listening is so personal, it's crucial to nurture attitudes which promote your own clear understanding, as well as the other person's ability to express himself. Self-awareness is key. The goal of listening is to promote understanding, not only your own, but the speaker's understanding and ability to communicate their situation. Effective listening requires respect for the person talking. This means a willingness to relate to the speaker as a unique individual and to relate without imposing judgments. Alert attention, which will help you to be aware of the person's concerns and encourage them to provide as much information as possible. It is important to be alert to clues about feelings underneath words. Someone's feelings about a predicament are important truths. Often during a conflict, neither side feels adequately heard, so the act of your sincere, respectful listening can begin to diffuse difficult feelings and set the stage for resolution. Behaviors to avoid. Interrupting. Interruption can be interpreted as vying for power or disrespect. Making judgments or assumptions. If speakers sense that you are judging them, the communication process is seriously hindered. Do not assume someone who does not make eye contact is lying. Maybe the person is shy or comes from a culture that finds it rude to look directly at someone. A loud voice doesn't have to mean anger, and it can also mean a hearing problem or even enthusiasm. Mentally debating with the speaker. This is related to remaining non-judgmental. Do not try to figure out who is right or who is wrong. You are not competing with the other person, so do not busy yourself thinking how you would have behaved in the situation. Concentrate on what the person with you is trying to get across. Shifting the spotlight. Sometimes we are so consumed in our own issues that when someone approaches us to discuss their personal issues, we immediately change the subject to be about our own issues. Taking the attention away from someone who needs an ear and shifting it to our own problem is a sign of an ineffective listener. Advising. Though it may feel that advice will de-escalate and satisfy a person's need, it is often more effective to simply let the person feel fully heard and understood. Minimizing. Giving perspective can be helpful when the timing is right, but it can often cause a speaker to feel discounted when they haven't been fully heard. These are all behaviors to avoid, so do not minimize, do not advise, do not shift the spotlight, do not mentally debate with the speaker, do not make judgments, do not interrupt. Okay, behaviors to practice. Communicate your respect and attention with your body. For example, maintain the level of eye contact that seems comfortable for the other person. Use an open posture. Monitor and adjust your own reactions. Are you starting to feel your own anger or suspicion? Focus on the speaker, keeping in mind that your own feelings can affect your judgment and even shut down the process. Did your attention wander? Or are you confused? Ask the speaker for clarity. Practice your detective skills. What isn't being addressed? Are words and explanations covering intense feelings? Often people are more comfortable expressing thoughts and reasons rather than directly expressing the emotions generating them. Listen to those feelings so that you can let the speaker know that they are important and deserve attention. Listen for those feelings so they can feel like you're listening to their feelings, but actually listen to those feelings. Be aware of who has the spotlight. During any conversation, be aware of where you put the spotlight. Being present and focused on the emotions behind their conversation will allow you to be more effective in the way you can support the individual. Like any rewarding skill you develop, authentic listening with exercise. A tool to use as a quick way to focus and jog your memory, especially when feelings and words are coming fast and furious, is ears. Empathize, ask questions, rephrase, and summarize. The assumption that you already know how to listen is probably the biggest barrier to improving your listening skills. Okay. Ears. Empathize. Imagine yourself to be the person before you with all the history, pains, and joys. Ask questions. Ask learning questions that elicit more than a yes or no response. Reflect, rephrase. Restate what you heard the other person say to their satisfaction, even if you feel differently. Summarize. A condensed understanding of the most important issues presented by the speaker. Empathy. Empathy can be described as imagining yourself to be the person before you with all their history, pains, and joys. The skills for effective communication are not separate components. They are interdependent, building and supporting each other. Empathy will help you express and feel respect, understanding, and keep your mirror as free from distortions as possible. How to practice. Imagine yourself to be the person ahead of you in the checkout line at the grocery store. Why might you be buying these particular groceries? What is your story? How are you feeling? Put yourself in a friend's or partner's place as they describe a challenging situation. Put yourself in the other person's shoes to try to understand how they might have been impacted. You can even put yourself in a friend's or partner's place as they describe a humorous experience. Feel their experience of surprise or absurdity. Practice empathy with yourself. Understand that your own reactions are valid and they spring from your own unique history. Convey interest, not necessarily agreement. Remember language. Empathy is often displayed through nonverbal body language or voice intonation. It must be frustrating to feel that you are not being taken seriously when you feel hurt about what your supervisor said. It feels bad to be so upset about. Core families of feelings. Fear and anxiety. Afraid, alarmed, anxious, apprehensive, bewildered, cautious, concerned, confused, disconcerted, disturbed, dubious, embarrassed, impatient, jittery, nervous, overwhelmed, panicky, perplexed, puzzled, reluctant, restless, scared, shocked, stressed, terrified, worried, sadness and grief. Bored, depressed, disappointed, discouraged, disheartened, dismayed, despairing, exhausted, helpless, hopeless, hurt, lonely, melancholic, sad, tired, troubled, joy and contentment, adventurous, affectionate, alive, amazed, astonished, amused, calm, confident, content, content, giddy, glad, grateful, happy, hopeful, inspired, intrigued, invigorated, joyful, curious, delighted, determined, eager, ecstatic, encouraged, excited, fascinated, friendly, loving, moved, overjoyed, peaceful, pleased, proud, refreshed, relaxed, relieved, satisfied, stimulated, surprised, thankful, thrilled, touched, tranquil, trusting, upbeat. Anger and frustration, aggravated, agitated, angry, annoyed, appalled, cranky, disgusted, exasperated, frustrated, furious, impatient, indignant, infuriated, irritated, resentful, upset. Exercise, reflecting empathy. In this exercise, look at the statements, name the emotions that might be present, and create sample empathy statements. I found out he installed the water heater incorrectly and almost killed my family because the carbon monoxide detector went off and I had to call 911 to come to the house. Emotion. Emotions that might be present. Anger. Panic. Shock, scared, indignant, disgusted, upset. Empathy statement. It must be hard to be scared for your family's safety. I have been withholding half of my rent because the landlord had not fixed the leaking water pipe or the locks on my window because she gets my money and that's all she wants. So an emotion that might be present is cranky, aggravated, apprehensive, furious, troubled, and concerned. Insert an empathy statement. It sounds like you're going through a hard time without having these problems solved. Feeling like you're not getting your money's worth. She never communicates what's going on, and I'm constantly finding out about meetings at the last minute. Emotion. Impatient, exasperated, annoyed, and stressed. Empathy statement. That must be very stressful for you to have to be prepared quickly and not have everything you want at the meeting. I can't get any sleep because 4 or 5 times a night the car alarm goes off. Emotion, irritated, infuriated, cranky, agitated, aggravated, disturbed, tired, melancholic. Okay, an empathy statement. That's a lot of times a night to be disturbed while you're supposed to be sleeping. Number 5. I didn't want to bring up all the money he owes me because of all the medical problems his kid is having, but I did because I have my own bills. Emotions present. Aggravated, desperate, worried, hurt, and disappointed. Empathy statement. It's a tough feeling, like he's got problems and you have problems. 6. We used to hang out together all the time. If I needed anything, she was right there. And we didn't have to plan ahead. I could just call her up and say, come over for dinner. I made too much chili. And I don't have that anymore. Emotion. Disappointed, discouraged, lonely, and sad. Empathy statement. It sounds like you had a great thing and then you didn't anymore, and it's tough to feel loss about that. Asking questions. When you find yourself needing more information, ask non-judging, open-ended questions. Use questions that will allow the other person to tell their story, to clarify specific statements that may have been made, to obtain more information about the problem and how it impacts them, to check out assumptions and perceptions. Open-ended questions elicit more than a yes or no response. They allow the party to talk about what is most important to them, not to you. They are most efficient in the long run. People tend to give a lot of information when they ramble on. Open-ended. How was that for you? What is important to you about that? What did that make you think about? Close-ended. Did you agree with that? Is that what you think? Are they right? Learning non-judging questions to seek fully to understand the situation before reacting to it. They help to build trust. Judgment can prevent it. They leave room open for a variety of solutions. They help uncover what's really going on. Learning. How did you interpret that? Judging. Who did it first? Learning. What's going on for you? Judging. Why did you do that? Learning. What did you need from the other party? Judging. Did you really think that would work? Learning. What do you think would help? Judging. Does that really even matter? And so it's been really interesting reading this and kind of thinking about the person that I'm gonna have like a conflict resolution with, and it's just like she has been super judgy, and so it's really weird to be like, okay, well, We can start by covering these questions about being open-ended and learning, because that's gonna create empathy in the resolution process.